Welcome to the Kids First Co-Parenting Podcast, the podcast for smart, intentional, millennial moms raising resilient kids after separation and divorce. I'm Dr. Carolyn Royster, a child psychologist, coach, and a mom. From peaceful co-parenting to total chaos, I've got you. This is Kids First Co-Parenting. Today, I'd like to introduce to you my guest, Leah Hadley. Leah Hadley is a financial planner, accredited financial counselor, certified divorce financial analyst, and the founder of Intentional Wealth Partners and Intentional Divorce Solutions. She is the author of Intentional Money, The Modern Woman's Guide to Building Wealth, Purpose, and Peace, and the creator of the Empowered Sisterhood, a community built to help women achieve lasting financial confidence. Leah's work is rooted in the belief that when women are financially empowered, everything changes. We dive deep today on financial and wealth building as women, both in and out of the divorce space, what to look for in a certified financial planner, how to get clear on your values, and what exactly you're working so hard for. I'm so excited for you to hear this. I had the good fortune of being on Leah's podcast months ago, probably about a year ago now. And we've stayed in touch, and I'm on her newsletter. And recently she published a really lovely book, and I read it, of course, and was like, ooh, I need to have her on my podcast. So here we are today. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to see you again. Tell us a little bit about your latest venture. I want to hear about the book. Where did it come from? What's it about?
It's Intentional Money is the title of the book. The Modern Woman's Guide to Building Wealth, Purpose, and Peace. And, essentially I have worked with people, individuals in financial world for almost 20 years at this point. But anyway,
Feels like yesterday. Yeah.
I've sat with people during really hard times, and I've heard the way people think about money. And in doing the work that I do, I feel very strongly that financial services, traditional financial services, is really missing the mark in terms of helping people to be successful building wealth. I think there's plenty of information out there. There's no shortage of information. But what is kind of missed are what's stopping people from taking action. If the information's out there, we know what to do. Why aren't people having success? And so that's really the basis of intentional money. Walk through the intentional money method, where there are 6 pillars. It's a framework that we teach in our Empowered Sisterhood program. And that framework starts with clarity. So at the end of the day, if we're not clear on what our current situation is, and we're not clear on what we want, then it makes it very difficult to know how to prioritize our actions. And so that clarity is both kind of knowing your current situation, but also knowing where you want to go. And I tell people, you don't have to be exact. A lot of the people that I'm working with, just like a lot of people you're working with, are going through difficult transitions in their lives. When you're going through a really hard transition, it's be really difficult to get clear on what you want your future to look like, because you're so stuck in where you're at right now, right? That's totally normal. So if you're listening and you're like,
or it all just fell apart, right? You had a plan and now you don't, or the plan looks really different.
Right. Absolutely. So there's a lot of reasons why you may not feel like your future is clear, but I encourage people to think about what really matters to them, what's important to them. Values is a pillar that we talk about in the intentional money method. And when we start to get clearer on what's important to us, what matters to us, we can start to think about, what do we want our life to look like? Where do we want to live? Who do we want to be interacting with on a daily basis? These are the kinds of things that are going to give us clarity about the kind of future that we want for ourselves, even when we're going through difficult times. I always tell people, it's okay if you don't have a crystal clear vision, because even those folks who do, you and I both know that vision changes over time. A new person enters your life, somebody else leaves your life, whatever that looks like, that vision changes. But what's so important about having something that you're kind of holding with as your compass is it keeps you moving forward towards something. You can always redirect by getting clear about moving forward towards something. So values is a big piece of that. But the other thing that I don't think enough people are talking about, specifically in the divorce world, especially, is the mindset issues that are coming up when we're trying to have these financial conversations. And, divorce triggers everything. Anything, anything that you've experienced in your life is going to resurface in some way, shape, or form during your divorce. That's, again, totally normal. But a lot of us don't even realize what those messages are that we have about money that's running kind of in the background. And
Mhm.
so the intentional money method really tries to draw to the surface, what are we saying to ourselves? What are we thinking about money when we have to negotiate our finances? Why is that making us really uncomfortable? Is there fear? Is there anxiety? Where is that coming from? Sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes you have a real reason. Finances are changing, and a lot of times supporting two households on the same level of income is going to mean a dramatic difference in how you live. But for a lot of people, it's more limitations around what we can do with money, what we can experience with money. Some of the messaging we've heard, a lot of people have been told for years that they're bad with money. How are you going to feel confident making financial decisions if you've heard for years that you're bad with money? That internal messaging comes up when you start looking at your numbers or you start thinking about these things. And so, really looking at, what's holding people back and helping people to just give themselves permission to say, you know what? Maybe I did make a mistake in the past. That's okay. We all have. Nobody was born knowing how to manage money well. So the book is all about giving you permission to really open up to what your experiences have been financially, what might be holding you back, and how can we get past that.
Mhm. I loved this about the book because I think there is no shortage of education.
Mm,
I could take a class at the community college.
right.
I haven't because there's something happening, right? So it's this idea of there's a lot of skills, there's many ways you can grow that knowledge base.
Hmm.
And I think also as a psychologist, there's this piece of something's getting in the way. What is getting in the way? And you don't know what you don't know. I believe in my own experience and what I've seen with my members is that there's so much shame around money,
Absolutely.
particularly for women. I don't think women, and this leads to my next question. I think it's different for us. I really
Mhm.
do. And so I'm curious about why did you decide I really want to speak to the heart of women and and wealth building and intentional money matters. So can you speak a
Yeah,
little bit about that?
we're at a very important time in, how our society has evolved where women are becoming more and more responsible for the wealth and wealth creation, wealth management, wealth protection, all of it. And we are also in a time where women have heard these messages about not being good with money. And here we are set to inherit and be responsible for significant, I mean, trillions of dollars are changing hands over the next decade. I mean, with the baby boomers aging and people dying and inheriting money, I mean, we're seeing a huge wealth transfer right now.
Mhm.
And most women are at this point not equipped to deal with that inheritance. And for some people who I work with, it is absolutely heartbreaking the way they are completely overwhelmed by the gravity of the responsibility of having to deal with this money. And the fact of the matter is, I truly believe that anybody has the opportunity to handle money responsibly. It's a
Yeah.
choice,
Yes.
but it is a choice that we have to make over and over and over again. We make financial decisions all day long, every day, from who are you using for your internet provider to your cell phone provider to deciding to pick up dinner for the family or whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
And so that can take a lot of pressure for somebody who's carrying a tremendous amount of shame around money. They're feeling the tension and the stress every time they're spending, every time a bill's coming in, right? Like this is a lot of weight. And now we're supposed to be responsible for all of this wealth and be able to do it well. And so I
Mhm.
really wanted to speak directly to women who are struggling with some of these fears. The financial service industry, the whole industry was designed for a very linear path, right? Like somebody goes, they get educated, they go into their career, they work in their career, they retire. That really is how the financial industry is set up. That is very unusual for most women. Honestly, it's unusual for anybody at this period of time. I mean, people change careers, they
Yeah, we don't
change
stay
jobs.
we don't stay in jobs for 30 years at the
Exactly.
factory and get a nice state pension anymore. Like, it doesn't work that way. And is it fair to say, Leah, that it was designed really for, like, a classic white man kinda energy? I feel like it's
Yeah,
built
I
with
mean,
all white
the
dudes.
foundation is exactly what you just described. You start, you work for 30 years and you retire on a pension. Absolutely. And yes, we've kind of built and evolved on top of that, but that very foundation is not what life looks like today. And, a lot of times people think about, sure, like maybe you take time out to care for your young children. That's the most common one that people think about. But I want to be clear that people leave and re enter the workforce for a variety of reasons throughout their career. And a lot of it might be caregiving, but we see people who are dealing with illness, people who are dealing with chronic disabilities. There's a lot of issues that come up for people. And this book is really designed to acknowledge the fact that, look, we are not all experiencing the same thing. Let's be really honest about that. And let's make some intentional decisions so we feel like we are in alignment with the life that we want. There's so much messaging about needing the bigger car or the bigger house or this vacation or whatever that looks like. All right, let's tone down the noise and get really clear on what really matters to me. So that way I can make decisions that are in alignment.
Hmm. I really appreciated it. There's a section in the book where you're talking about, like, what am I trying to get by spending this money? Am I trying to get comfort? Am I trying to get security? Am I trying to get esteem from my neighbors? There's no judgment around why you're doing it, but you do need to understand where it's coming from if you're trying to be intentional. That piece was very profound for me. And I've been thinking about that a lot since I read it. But I kind of want to shift gears a little bit to, I think some of the people that I work with, it's been part of the messaging, either from their upbringing, either from the powers that be, the education system, etc., that women in particular can't handle the money, are irresponsible, or shouldn't. And then sometimes they get in these relationships where it's really used as a weapon in kind of these coercive control dynamics. This is a huge question, but how do you start to work with that and unpack that? And how do we get them to you? How do we get people the resources they need where it's like, no, you actually can do this, you know?
Well, start with the book. The book is an easy resource. So I encourage people to start with the book. And I'm working on a journal right now, which is going to be a fantastic accompaniment for the book. But
I
I will
thought
say,
about that when I was reading it. I was like,
did
these
you?
are journal prompts. Like,
Yeah.
I should write on
Yeah.
this. Some of them I did, but
Oh,
yes, a journal is
good.
a great accompaniment. That's amazing.
Excellent. It's about starting as small as you possibly can. It really is. And that's what I really encourage people is like, what is the tiniest, smallest thing that we can do that's going to move you forward that we can celebrate the heck out of? And that's part of what we do in the Empowered Sisterhood. We have a woman right now who's preparing for a divorce who's never had money in her own name. She's in her 60s and she just went and opened her own checking account. And you better believe we celebrated the heck out of her. Like we made such a big deal about the fact that yes, 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 you did this. Yes, you can do this. You did it. Like, let's just acknowledge that.
Yes,
But
amazing.
that's the kind of thing that, for a lot of women, the messaging is not, let me celebrate the fact that, at 60 plus years old, you opened your first bank account. But instead, what is wrong with you that at 60 plus years old, you opened your first bank
Yeah,
account? And
you're
I
so
want that
irresponsible.
out. I want that gone. That is not the message. That is not helping anybody. That is like just doing the exact opposite. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
everybody is starting from a different situation. There are many women who I've worked with who for decades didn't have access to their own money. And we get to witness how they start to like slowly take control and what that looks like. And it's different for everybody. But I do encourage people to look at what is the smallest thing that we can do and show you the evidence that you can have every single success, but it's got to start somewhere. These messages that people carry with them for decades, for years about not being good with money, women not being able to handle money. Guess what? If you look at the research, it actually shows that on average, women are more successful investors. And the reason being is because women are willing to take a strategy, understand it, and stick with it. And that's really powerful when it comes to investing. And I wish that message was out there more because so many women say to me, my husband always handled the investments and I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe you don't in that moment. That may absolutely be true, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn it. And it doesn't mean that you can't partner with somebody who's going to celebrate every success that you have.
yeah, yeah. What are some of the other fears that you really hear a lot about? So this, like, I never really did it. It's not really my place. What are some of the other ones that people really commonly struggle with? Women in regards to money specifically.
I find a lot of women just struggling giving themselves permission to spend money, especially if they have been
Interesting.
under a heavy hand during their marriage. and we're not able to spend very freely. And even like I've brought it into my own second marriage. There's a lot of tension around money in my first marriage, and I was the one who committed financial infidelity. I would buy things without talking and sneak them into the house because I didn't want the argument. And my husband now will say to me, hey, remember, things are different now. But it's
Yeah, like,
hard
"You don't
when
have to
you did that.
keep that." Yeah.
Yeah, but when you do that for a long period of time, it becomes part of your like default behavior. And then you have to bring some awareness around it in order to make that shift. But he'll even say to me, like, Leah, I like it when you spend money on yourself. I think you deserve, you know what I mean? Like he has those reminders for me, but it's so easy for me to be like, oh, no, I can't spend that on me. Like I just went on this amazing, amazing retreat. And it was like literally a week dedicated to me. Like not worried about the kids, not worried about the husband, not worried about the business. My team members took care of everything. And that felt like it was hard. It was hard for me to do that for myself. But I see it in my clients too. It's amazing when we can start to really own and do it in a healthy way. Like I'm not talking about overspending or, I'm not talking about spending for comfort, but I am talking about like, hey, it's okay to say that you deserve something and to spend money on yourself. Like that's okay. And so sometimes when I'm working with people, there is a lot of fear around spending on themselves and, feeling like they're being selfish or doing something wrong. And that's a lot that we have to work through.
And I imagine too, I see a lot, I think, with moms in general. But the point is like, we'll prioritize everybody else's needs before our own. And I think that's really ingrained in us as women. And then you add in somebody who's very heavy handed with money. And you've got kind of this double whammy of, I'm not going to spend on myself. That's bad. That's shameful. That's any number of things, or that's going to break us.
Yeah. Right.
Do you also see the opposite sometimes of folks that kind of spend without thinking?
And not only that, I think this can be really difficult for people who I kind of think about it in terms of pent up demand. Like you haven't been able
Mhm.
to spend for so long, but also a lot of times when people are not spending on a regular basis, they may be a little out of touch with how much they actually have available to spend. And so I do see the opposite where, women will get their settlement post divorce and just blow through those assets very, very quickly
Yeah.
because, it's like, finally, I get to spend some money,
Mhm.
right? But it may be an issue of like, okay, we can absolutely spend, but we still want to do it responsibly and intentionally, so that way we're not putting ourselves in a precarious financial situation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's if you think about the settlement in particular, I think, for a lot of women, they haven't had that massive amount of money in their name in a long time. And so to me, this feels like a very crucial time to have a financial strategy.
Hmm.
What to our listener who is really close to that or recently has that and just has the money like sitting in an account and is afraid to touch it, or knows it's coming, what are some things to keep in mind? What do you aside from start working with a financial advisor?
Think that a lot of people really have no idea what a financial plan is, what it looks like, how it operates, how useful it is. And I have to say, for those who have gone through any kind of major life transition, job loss, divorce, growing your family,
It
right?
could be an
Maybe you're having
inheritance,
and
right?
here, absolutely. Any major life transition, it is important to have a reset on your financial plan. Now, you may not have a written out financial plan, and maybe you don't even need one depending on the nature of your financial situation. But for anybody who struggles with stress or anxiety around money, that financial plan is very concrete. It makes things very tangible. Everything's in black and white. So you can see your numbers, you can see your projections, you can see what you can do to be more tax efficient. You don't have to figure this stuff out on your own. That is what the financial planning process is looking at all these different areas of your financial life and how do you optimize it based on kind of where you're headed. So I strongly encourage people, even if they don't think they need it, to at least sit down and talk with somebody who is a fee only financial planner. I want to be clear about that. You're not sitting
Yes,
down
yes.
with somebody who's selling you product, but you want to sit down with somebody who gets paid for the service of planning, like that is a service that they provide. So that way their recommendations are going to be objective, specifically based on your specific situation and what you should be doing. But that's what I really encourage people, even if you don't think you have the level of wealth to require a financial plan, just have a conversation with somebody and kind of see where you're at. That alone is really powerful.
Is it important that that person is a certified divorce financial planner or not? What would be the benefit of that?
If they are getting advice on the divorce itself, either preparing for the divorce, negotiations around the divorce itself, 100% you want to have somebody who is a certified divorce financial analyst, a CDFA.
Yes,
The
I know a
institute
CDFA. I didn't know the last letter. Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
But the Institute for Divorce Financial Analysts, you can go on their website. You can search for CDFAs in your area. A lot of them, we work nationwide. A lot of them do work nationwide. But certainly, if you want to sit down with somebody in person, that's a great, great resource. Once you're after the divorce, once the divorce is final, you don't necessarily need that same level of education from your planner. So once you're post-divorce, I think it's fine to work with a financial planner who is not necessarily divorced, but
Yes.
during the divorce itself, critical to have somebody who has that divorce expertise.
And fee only. Now, this is something I learned when we hired our financial guy, who's lovely, but truly I hired him because not because we had a lot to deal with and to invest or figure out, but because I was like, I need somebody to tell me and to advise me and like support. And
Mhm.
one of the things I really had to wrestle with was financial planners are for the ultra wealthy.
Right.
When I have $1 million to invest, that's when I'll hire somebody.
Yeah.
And I think if you could speak a little bit to that myth, that's what I hear a lot is like, well, but I'm getting a small settlement or I'm actually paying out. So I'm not going to have a lot. Like, I don't know, just this myth that you need to be in a certain place or that they're going to shame you is,
Well, and I think that that myth is very much based on people's real life experience. So I want to be clear, all financial planners are not created equally. There are plenty of wealth managers out there where you do have to have 5 million or more in order to be able to work with them or 2 million or more in order to be able to work with them, and that is who they specialize in. But that's not everybody and that's not across the board. And so I always encourage people, if you have a question, you want to talk to somebody, reach out and find out. And if they have a minimum that is not, welcoming to you, then move on to somebody else. That is not a reflection of you. That's simply how that person is running their practice. I always encourage people because it's so easy to take that personally in some way or like assign some value to it. And so that's where we really want to encourage people to be in a space where they feel comfortable asking questions. That really is why the Empowered Sisterhood exists because there were people who literally would wait years before reaching out to me. They might be like 4 years post divorce and finally be like, Leah, I've been meaning to reach out. I knew I needed to, but like I just wasn't ready yet or whatever. And then I'm looking at all the things that they did over the last 4 years and I'm like, oh, we could have saved you so much.
yeah,
And
or it
so
could have been
I
growing, compounding
absolutely,
interest.
yeah. And so that's why I like to have that space. So people can have a safe space to ask questions. It might be questions they are asking their financial advisor and they just want some other, set of eyes on it or whatever that looks like. But just having that space to acknowledge, hey, financial services, not a great history there. There's a lot of people who have had negative experience. There's a lot of people out there who are very condescending. There are a lot of people who are hard salespeople. They're getting paid by commission and they are hard salespeople.
Yes.
But
Yes.
just like every other industry, there are also amazing financial planners who really want to help you, want to get to know you, want to figure out how they can best support you. And so I just want to encourage you if you have had a negative experience, again, don't take it personally, just move on to the next one.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, it's very similar to psychologists and therapists. It's like
Mhm.
nobody's feeling any sort of way when I say, like, hey, I mostly work with kids or my membership is for women. Like, they're just like, oh, okay, that's not your specialty. Move on. Right.
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
there's a therapist somewhere. Actually, I know there is that specializes in the ultra wealthy. Right.
Mhm.
Therapist to the stars, if you will. So I think it's not this or that. It's just it's not your specialty.
Right.
You have mentioned a couple times the Empowered Sisterhood. Help me understand what that is. Is that your
Yeah.
member? You have a membership? Is
That
that what
is
it is?
our membership program.
That's
Yes, we
amazing.
just launched it late last year.
Okay, I was going to say I hadn't heard of it yet, Leah, and now I feel kind of bad.
And yeah, it's amazing. It's a space for people. Literally, it's about breaking down the barriers around conversations around money. So we
Yeah.
do every single week, we have a weekly coffee chat where we just open it up. You talk about whatever's on your mind, whatever's on your heart. And, we talk about everything under the sun. Absolutely, money comes up, but so do pets and kids and grandkids and everything else under the sun. And it's just a safe space. People can
Yeah.
let their hair down. We do not record those, and that is intentional so that, whatever is shared in that space stays in that space. And then we do a monthly financial coaching call. That one is recorded. So if people miss it, they can always watch the replay. And we do a monthly masterclass on a financial topic.
So you do both of those?
Yeah. Coaching call and a masterclass each month, and then our weekly
Wow.
coffee chats.
Wow, amazing. That's incredible, yeah.
It really,
Might see Dr. Carolyn in there, guys. You might see
that
me.
would be awesome.
I I have been on a journey just trying to be so intentional and learning and reading different women-led financial books. That's why
Mhm.
when you sent me yours, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in," because I've read quite a few and I've stopped a few when I feel like this is getting too much into something I'm not ready for. Or I recently read one based in like Freudian theory of money, and that was a little much even for me. But I really personally very much believe, I'm a business owner. I'm part of supporting our family, and I'm very involved in our money. And I have a lot of feelings about that. There's a lot of I have a lot of money narratives, right?
Yeah.
And kind of this constant emotional labor that I didn't really I haven't found a lot of spaces to talk about. Right.
Actually, literally, the term that came up in our coffee chat last week was around emotional labor. And that's exactly what people were talking about. Even people who are happily married feeling very overwhelmed by this responsibility if their partner is maybe not engaging in the same way. But the other piece of it is, we work with lots of couples. Keep in mind, you're both bringing all your stuff to the table when it comes to talking about money. And if you haven't had time to really talk through, like, where am I coming from? What was my experience? What am I bringing to the table? The stuff that's kind of going on beneath the surface, sometimes we're not even aware of. And it's so powerful to have these conversations because
Yeah.
then it starts to open your eyes to things that like that's why they did that. Or like, you know what I mean? And so that can be really, really helpful, especially when you're trying to navigate stuff together. If you haven't had those foundational conversations.
And I think, to your point, it's when I talk to other women frankly about money, typically the response I get is that this is so refreshing. Like a lot of people won't talk about
Mm-hmm.
some of these things. And it's a lot of like, oh, me too. I didn't realize other people were feeling this way. But also just the spectrum, right? Of the way women manage and think about and navigate money, whether they're single, divorced, married, and one person works from the home and one person goes to an office, or like myself, we're both employed and navigating all of this together. The gamut of what comes up is
Mm-hmm.
so universal, but also so individual.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
incredible.
Well, and I find it really interesting in the business coach space because at the end of the day, right, business owners need to understand the revenue drivers, the profit drivers. Like how do you run a profitable business? And I'm shocked by the number of business coaches that won't talk about money. And that's just something that's
Yes.
kind of off the table. And it's like,
Yes.
wow, that's
Yes.
kind of one of the core features of running a business is making sure you're doing it responsibly.
What you said also sparked for me around therapists and psychologists and talking about their fee, charging what they're worth, collecting their fee. I mean, there's so much psychology.
Yeah.
There's people that's their whole business is teaching therapists how to charge and collect their fee. Like it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing though, right, is a lot of times, and we're actually working on a piece for this specific topic right now, but a lot of therapists do bring their own money baggage to the
100%.
conversation. And so it does limit sometimes the growth opportunities for the client
Yes.
around this topic. And so we're encouraging people to start understanding some of these financial accreditations that are out there. So, like, one of mine is I'm an accredited financial counselor. And so I've done a lot of work on counseling, but I am not a financial therapist. So I understand the difference and when somebody
Yes.
might need a financial therapist, right? But a lot of psychologists, therapists out there don't necessarily, because these are newer resources. These are not resources that have been around forever. Don't
Yes.
necessarily even know that there are people like this who can support areas where you may not feel like is your strength.
Yeah. My financial planner has it might be that, but he was like, "I understand the emotional I've taken extra training on the emotional aspects of money
Hmm.
to support my clients when they, like, can't let go of a inheritance, can't spend it, even though they should because it's so hard for them."
Yeah.
And I notice a difference. I feel like his extra training in that is really he's very good at not shaming us.
Yeah. Well, that's
And you
huge.
can,
That's
like, hold it,
fantastic. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, I just wanna do this because I feel like I should." He can hold that and
Hmm.
then help me with, "Well, maybe there's a reason you shouldn't,"
Hmm.
or that you
Yeah.
should, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about you had said a term early on when we were talking, financial infidelity. Can
Yes.
we talk about that?
Yes.
What is that? I mean, I think I know from the context of what you said, but what
Yeah.
can it all encompass?
It's essentially lying about money. And so
Okay.
when we,
Or
you
secrets
know,
about money?
secrets about money, yeah, when we do forensic cases on the divorce practice, right? It
This
could
is so
be somebody
interesting.
is hiding money. That's, most commonly what we're looking for, or might be wasting money in some way. My personal issue was a shopping habit that I was trying to hide,
Yeah.
but it comes up in a lot of different ways. Yeah, it's
That
essentially
feels that feels very different to me than, like, somebody hiding money. Like, sneaking in your Target purchase feels different than, like, I'm gonna squirrel away $50,000 so you don't get it in the settlement, but I suppose you're kinda saying there's degrees of
well,
severity.
yeah, well, and like, I mean, really, I did it many times over the years. So we're not talking about like one shopping trip where I like went and hid packages coming in. Like, this was
Mhm.
a habit. And I was spending enough that in terms of our marriage, like, there was definitely secretive behavior. I mean, it was definitely behavior that contributed to conflict. It was not resolving any conflict.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I own that. I absolutely own that. And I see how it impacts me now. But I also think it's important to acknowledge if you're in a relationship where you feel like that's what you have to do in order to avoid conflict, there's
Bingo.
bigger issues that need to be dealt with, right?
Right. Yeah, and, if that happens a couple of times, I think the difference probably is the pattern and the
Hmm.
entrenchment of it, and if you can come to your partner and say, like, "Hey, I've been keeping something from you, and we need to talk about why," is very different. My mind goes to these really extreme examples, right? Somebody has a secret credit card
Well,
or,
that's what I was gonna
you
say.
know
It's all different in that I was not putting us in a difficult financial situation. It wasn't having a negative financial impact, but we do see cases that come up where people are racking up tens of thousands of dollars of debt because of these kinds of behaviors. And
Yeah.
so I want to just acknowledge, like, yeah, there's definitely a spectrum just like anything else.
I think, financial abuse and financial health feels so psychological to me in every layer of it.
Yeah, I just literally posted an article on Substack, but specifically talking about financial advisory fees because I don't think people fully understand them. And I think it's interesting. Some of the people who are expressing some negativity around them are actually much more expensive, if you will. And so I talk about that in the article.
Yeah.
But I think it is really critical to understand, just like in other areas, right? Financial planners charge differently. They provide different kinds of services depending on kind of what their licensing is and what their fee structure is and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no fee structure, in my opinion, is inherently good or bad. It's, if there are conflicts of interest, does the person you're working with have the level of integrity that you feel confident them navigating those conflicts of interest? Because conflict of interest exists everywhere. And so you want to make sure that you understand what they are and you understand how that person is navigating them. But as long as you feel confident in that, then honestly, it's what is the value that I'm getting for this fee? If the value's not there, then absolutely question the fee. But there are financial coaches out there that have some cases no credentials, some cases very, very limited credentials that are charging thousands and thousands of dollars a year and then giving some advice that you don't want to pay a financial planner or financial advisor, in some cases are charging a fraction of what you might be paying to that financial coach and maybe investing your money and getting you significant returns on top of that fee that you're paying. It just becomes a different conversation. So anyway, I walk through the specific details and
Yes.
examples in that article, but I think it's really valuable for people to understand. And just like anything else, be intentional, be thoughtful about the kind of person that I really want to partner with in order to reach my financial goals.
There's a lot of similarities in our work. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people calling themselves coaches, and it's an unregulated profession, and I also call myself a coach in some areas. I happen to be trained in those areas, right? While you were talking, I had this really wackadoo question, and you can totally not answer this if you want, but I am so curious what you think about manifestation, wealth manifestation stuff.
No, let's talk about it. I think that there's a lot to be said for manifestation in that we get clear on what we want. We take intentional action. We remove the friction, whether or not we can actually create something with our minds. I think that's sort of
Your own
outside the
belief.
realm of possibility for me,
Uh-huh.
but
Yep.
that doesn't mean I'm not open to the possibility. But I think there are very concrete things that a lot of people do to get in their own way around manifestation. Not even just looking at, I've had worked with some amazing business owners in the past that like make it difficult for themselves to get paid. And it's like, no, 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 we're going to make this as easy as possible. like, but
Yes.
there's very tangible things that are taught sort of in that world around manifestation that I think are very practical and anybody can implement and you're going to see results.
Yeah. I feel similarly around, when people manifest, a job or a new partner or wealth or whatever it might be, new partner. But this I think it's more about the intentionality that you're getting really clear on what you want and then your behaviors sort of align with it.
Hmm.
I listened to a really good commentary on manifestation from Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach once, where they were talking about like the dangers of it is that, you're telling somebody with less that they just need to like wish harder to get it, right? Well, there's pieces of that that are beautiful and you still need skills and you still need somebody to support you kind of with
Yeah.
it, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think the thing we have to be careful of, right, is holding on too tightly to any kind of story that might be limiting what we believe we are capable of as human beings. And so we are capable of so much. I mean, really, so much and you hear incredible stories of what people, I mean, especially athletes, what they've been able to physically do that we thought was impossible, like people crossing the Atlantic Ocean and like crazy, I mean, like just things that just seem so outside the realm of possibility. But these are also folks that are taking really, really specific direct action to make these things happen, right? And so to say like, well, I can't do that because I can't manifest that. That's like a story that some people will hold on to that I just want to discourage because you have a lot of control in your life. And I really encourage people to take ownership of that as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And so that's where I just caution people around it. As long as we're like doing the things like I said before, getting clear on what we want, taking intentional action, removing any friction that might be getting in our way, it really is the core of the principles around
We talked about the first pillar, which is clarity. The next pillar, we didn't
values.
mention values. Okay, what are the other four?
The third one is mindset, what we talked about a little bit before. And then the last three are strategy, action, and support. And strategy, action, and support are typically where we find more traditional financial advice. It's going to be what's the strategy, take the action, and maybe you have a financial advisor as your support. I encourage people, again, every area we want to bring the intentionality. So, what does support really look like for me? My mom passed away last July. She and I were very, very, very close. Any
Sorry,
financial
Leah.
decision, thank you. any financial decision that I was making in my life, you better believe I was getting a second set of eyes on it from my mom because I really trusted and valued her opinion. That was part of my support team. Knowing that I no longer have that person to do that for me made me realize, hey, I gotta rebuild that support team. I know what I need in order to be able to reach the goals that matter to me. I do work with a business coach. I do get financial advice from another financial planner. I'm
Mhm.
open to these things and acknowledging that, like, hey, I got big goals. I want to have a big impact on the way people interact with and think about money. I want to set myself up for that level of success to have the impact that I want to have. That means I need really good, strong support in place. There's this messaging online. You have to be able to do it all yourself. You should be able to figure it out all yourself. If you're investing, just throw a certain dollar amount into a certain index fund and like let it ride, whatever. Like all very basic and generic. And if you follow it, it may get you to where you want to go, maybe, but
Mhm.
I have clear goals around where I want to go. And so I know that I need that support team in place. And I'm going to continue to invest in that for myself and provide it for other people. So I would
Mhm.
say while support is absolutely part of the financial services industry, the way we talk about it in the book is more open than just kind of sitting with your financial advisor. Maybe it's a membership community like the Empowered Sisterhood. Maybe it's really getting into certain podcasts that are really supportive for the way you think about money. Whatever it is, getting and having the support around you that you need to really efficiently reach your goals.
Well, and I would add not being a financial person, but I see a lot of the first step, the initiative. I'm going to get good with money. I think it's how is it going to be more ongoing for
Right.
you?
Yeah.
How do I keep myself accountable
Yeah.
rather than just at this January of every year? I think I'm going to be better with money this year. It's a pretty vague goal. And how do you keep that's what I really appreciated about that. I often work with parents and I say things like, good parents know when to bring somebody else onto the team. I'm a smart lady. I can figure out a lot of stuff. Do I need to do my kids' dental work for them? No, that's
Right.
not my expertise. I'm going to bring in somebody who knows how to put on braces and I'm going to pay them for that service because I value it. Could I learn it? Still probably no. Like,
You probably could if you
yeah,
really, really want.
maybe if I wanted to, but it's not, I don't value that.
Right.
And I think of some of these services that we're talking about, business coaches, but even more practical divorce support,
Mhm.
analysis, the financial pieces, coaching and therapy. It's just about being intentional around having people you can ask the questions about, but also having a space you show up to every week
That's
and
right.
you revisit your goals. You drink your coffee and you think, okay, what did I do for my financial goals this week? I
That's
mean, that's
exactly.
incredible. What we will do is you've mentioned quite a few resources today. So we'll certainly link the Amazon link to your book. I also really want to link the Empowered Sisterhood. I think that's a
Sure.
beautiful membership. We'll link
Excellent.
the Registry of the Certified Divorce.
Financial analyst.
Yes, thank you. We'll link to how folks can work with you directly. I'm assuming one on one as
Mhm.
well and with your team. Where else can people find you? Oh, you should tell them about your podcast.
I was gonna say,
Duh.
yes.
Yeah.
So I have a podcast called Intentional Divorce Insights. It is everywhere. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on YouTube. And it is all about just what we've been talking about today about bringing intentionality to the process. Divorce can be an extremely reactive process, as I'm sure you all know. But if we take a step back and really get clear on what matters to us, we can bring some intentionality and have it being more of a transformational process
Yes.
of like just having to get through it. Intentional Divorce Insights, be sure to check it out. I am Watch Her Thrive on Instagram and I am very
Ooh.
active on LinkedIn as well.
And we'll link, YouTube pages and all that good stuff. You can find Leah. If you can't find Leah, you just reach out to me and I'll help you find Leah if you need to find her. Any parting words of wisdom, things that usually I ask one thing that they need to know or really hold on to about their financial future? What would you speak into them?
Absolutely. Just a continuation of what we've talked about today, but I really just want to say directly that every single person can take care of their finances. It's just a matter of acknowledging where you're at right now. If you need support, getting the support that you need, and then starting to take action. And I really truly believe that's available to everybody. And so if you're sitting there going and still having some of these messages that we're talking about today, pick up the book because it really is going to help you rethink how you think about money.
It really does. And it's beautifully written. It's very helpful. And like I said, I've read a lot of these books and few are as good as Leah's.
Thank you so
I would
much.
truly say that. It's a very helpful book. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we'll see each other. We'll be around. Thanks, Leah. Take good care.
You too.
Bye bye.
I'm really excited today because I want to share with you a letter that I got from a member inside the Kids First community. And it really touched my heart. It says, "Hey there, I just wanted to say thank you again for your help and looking over all of the questions. It helped out so much and helped me to sort through it all in my mind. I submitted them all last week and I'm just waiting on the next steps. Thank you again, and I hope your week is going really well." Now, this is submitted from an actual member inside the Kids First community after we worked on some questions as part of a parenting plan evaluation. This is the type of support you get inside the membership for just $97 a month. Please consider joining if you're in the depths of a high conflict and litigious court battle. Just a quick disclaimer. This podcast is for general information and education only. It is not legal advice. It is not mental health treatment, and listening does not create a therapist-client relationship. Laws and clinical needs vary, so please consult a licensed professional in your area who can evaluate and help you with your specific situation. And if you are in a dangerous situation or feel unsafe, contact local authorities or domestic violence resources right away. If you believe you are in imminent danger, please contact 911.